So in this video, we are going to look at an economic critique of colonialism. So in our previous videos, we touched upon political and social conditions of India in the second half of the 19th century, even in the first half of the 19th century, in fact. It was on purpose that an equally important aspect, that of economic conditions, was left out in the analysis. We will cover it here in this video. Economic critique formed the base of the activities of early Congress. People had already experienced how British rule had impoverished them, but the economic analysis and critique of Congress helped the masses understand the process behind the ruination of the Indian people better. The early leaders of the Congress and numerous other smaller associations in the second half of the 19th century developed a coherent and an impactful critique of colonialism. This was perhaps their most important contribution, as dismantling the vice grip of the British on the Indian economy became the very pith and marrow of the nationalist agitation. This was achieved through popular lectures, pamphlets, newspapers, songs, dramas, and Prabhat fairies. The early leaders of the Congress have often been accused of being sycophantic of the British. That means they were bootlicking the British. They have been accused of being blind to the effects that the British rule was having on India, blind to the many political, psychological, and economic disabilities of foreign rule and domination. But the fact is that the early leaders of Congress recognized all of these disabilities, but they hoped that the British would help modernize India and rebuild India as a spit image of the Western metropolis. The early leaders could be blamed for being naive enough to have believed in such a notion, but their choices were also truly limited. There were numerable leaders of repute who developed a beautiful economic critique of British imperialism in India. Dadabhai Naoroji is the tallest of all of these critics. His theory of drain of wealth was one of the first such analysis by an Indian in the 19th century that gathered so much public attention. We also have Justice Ranade or Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade, a magistrate who taught an entire generation of Indians the value of modern industrial development. Remember that Ranade was also one of the mentors for Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Romesh Chandra Dutt or R.C. Dutt, a retired ICS officer who published the book The Economic History of India in the beginning of the 20th century. In this book, he examined in minute detail the entire economic record of colonial rule. Subramanya Iyer, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, G.V. Joshi, Prafulla Chandra Ray or P.C. Ray all made significant contributions to the debate on the debilitating effects that Britain was having on India. Each and every one of these critics made one point clear. The essence of British imperialism lay in the subordination of the Indian economy to the British economy. The colonial structure maintained its domination through three aspects: trade, industry, finance. As early as the mid 19th century, the Indian intellectuals had figured out that exploitation no longer took the form of plunder and tribute and mercantilism, but it operated through the more disguised mechanism of free trade and foreign capital investment. This is true even today. Although the economic front of the world had multiplied in terms of its complexity, even today, neocolonialization and neo-imperialism take the form of free trade imposed forcefully through multilateral fora by the developed nations with advanced technological and production capabilities upon the developing world. Plunder continues even today as developing nations are forced to open their markets before they are ready to do so. India was looked upon as a market for British capital and value added finished goods, while India was to be an exporter of raw material and food grains. It is chilling at some level that we continue to export raw materials even today, and this economic model continues. The leaders of the 1850s to 1900s advocated severance of India's economic subservience to Britain in every aspect of life and agitated for an alternative path of development which would lead to an independent economy. Western intellectuals like John Stuart Mill, who are considered to be one of the foremost utilitarians and philosophers, said that foreign capital was a sine qua non to the national development of India. Perhaps it is time that we start thinking about the very nature of these Western intellectuals and the people whose interest they had at the core of their philosophies. Dadabhai Naoroji put it perfectly that foreign capital represented the despoliation and exploitation of Indian resources. Foreign capital hence constituted a system of international depredation. The development of railways had been coordinated with the needs of British industries in India. It was never developed for the people of the country or for its industries. The only aim of developing railway infrastructure in India was to serve the needs of British industries. Therefore, the railways had ushered in a commercial revolution, not an industrial one. This commercial revolution helped the British imported foreign goods to undersell domestic industrial products. Perhaps G.V. Joshi put it accurately. Expenditure on railways should be seen as Indian subsidy to British industries. Tilak put it candidly. Expenditure on railways was like decorating another's wife. Demand for reduction of land revenue and abolition of sati tax had been going on for almost a century before the Dandi March. Demands for imposition of income tax and import duties on products which the rich and middle classes consumed were demanded. The high expenditure on army was condemned, especially conquests to Afghanistan, Tibet, and Africa. We will continue with Dadabhai Naoroji's drain of wealth theory in the next video. Thank you.